All right, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at installing some lift top hardware. And I've never done this before, and so I bought this set of lift top hardware. It was less than $20 on Amazon. It had pretty good reviews, so I thought I would try it on this table. This is a little table I built to actually put our Christmas tree on, but I built it in such a way where the top would come off, and because I wanted to make a little lift top coffee table. And so I actually will link to a video of the full build process of the table itself. This is just a real simple basic construction. This was made entirely out of fence pickets. And so, well, what I thought I would do is walk through the process of figuring out how to install these brackets for the lift top mechanism. There's no instructions that come with them. There's no screws that come with them. It's just the hardware itself. And just looking at the hardware, I mean, it seems like it'll do the job. They come zip tied just like I have them. So I'm going to leave them zip tied, I believe, and kind of figure out how this is. I have a general idea because I've had lift top coffee tables in the past. But this is the first time me actually ever building one. So, so we're going to have to kind of figure this out as we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the basic construction of the table real quickly. And then we're going to put it back together just like it is, flip it upside down, and work on it upside down to actually mount the hardware. So let's just talk real quickly about the tabletop itself. It's just 5 fence pickets. So that makes this about 27 inches. But it's 5 fence pickets. And then you can see I've got these 2 full width fence pickets here, like a cleat that holds them all together. Right now they're just glued and stapled together, but I probably will come back in and drive some screws to hold that a little bit better in place. Now these cleats sit on the inside of this to the inside of this from here to here, okay? And it fits perfectly in there. Now, I don't know if they're gonna have to be modified at all, because the way the top's got to come up and down. I don't know if there's going to be clearance issues. That's something that we're going to kind of have to figure out as we go. However, I do know that we're going to have to put in some material on the inside of these in order to mount the hinge too. Right now, the hinge cannot mount to this, so the hinge is going to have to mount to some new material. So we're going to put in some new fence picket material here in order to make it work. And one of the things I thought about doing was wrapping this distance, go ahead and wrap it all the way around with fence pickets and make it like a little trunk. And I still may do that because then we could, we could use it as like for storage. And most likely that's probably what I'll wind up doing. I'll probably be closing all this off with some additional fence picket material. But you can see the construction is real simple. We took a full-size fence picket, ripped it in half, so that these are 2.5 inches, or you could just rip it right in half and these would be 2 3/4. I think these are probably 2 3/4. They might only be 2.5. I really don't know, but you can see real simple fence picket, and then wrapped it all the way around the outside. Same thing, up 4 inches from the bottom, wrapped it all the way around from the outside. Now, I will tell you that, now this is, it's a very lightweight table, doesn't weigh nothing, which is all right. It served its purpose. Like I said, it was just a little table to elevate my Christmas tree. And then we had this all lit up on the bottom and stuff. And we had little winter houses and little miniature figurines and things. So it was just for display. But like I said, I planned on making this for an outdoor lift top coffee table. So I am interested to know how the hardware lasts over the seasons. It's all powder coated and stuff, so it will rust a little bit, but I don't know that it's going to be a big deal, you know. And if the hardware lasts 2 or 3 years and we have to replace it for $20, I'm not that concerned about it. So at any rate, that's kind of the premise. But if I were building this again, I would probably recommend doubling up. You'll see some of our other builds where we build things with fence pickets. We just double them up. We glue them, staple them, screw them, and so these corners would all be doubled up. Okay, and that will just give you a little bit more rigidity. It's okay for what it is, but that would give you just a little bit more meat. And I think it's better if we doubled that up, and it's, you know, obviously it's really cheap to do it, so why not? So at any rate, that's one of my concerns. The top fits perfectly on here. It's I don't know how to describe it. When you put the top on, it fits perfectly. It's not tight. You don't have to force it. So with that lifting mechanism, I don't know if that is going to be an issue or not. I don't know yet. So at any rate, that's the basic construction of the table. And now we'll flip it, we'll put the lid back on, flip it upside down, and we'll work everything upside down. Okay, so my idea, like I said, I've not installed a set of these, so I don't truly know exactly how it's going to work out. But the height of these from here to here are 3 7/8. Okay, so from here to here, 3 7/8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make me some cleats to install on the inside here, and those cleats are going to be 4 1/4. Now, why did I choose 4 1/4 if this is 3 7/8? Where we're going to put our mounting screws, I want a little bit of meat below them, so there'll be, you know, just be a little bit of meat that will allow me to not have that screw right at the edge of the board. You know, we want some solid meat. So what we're going to do, we're going to rip 2 pieces 4 1/4 for this side, 2 pieces 4 1/4 this side, and we're going to screw it in right here. And then our hinge, so once we do that, so our hinge is going to, I think actually, that's the other thing we want to consider is which way this is opening up as to which side we're going to install it on. But I think it's going to go like this. Okay, so our hinge is going to kind of mount like that. So now you can kind of see how that hinge will mount. So it mounts there, and then we'll have a board that's 4 1/4 that this will mount to. Okay, so it'll make more sense once we actually get those extra 2 boards in place. But I just got to think about how I want the you know, which side do I want be lifting up. So I'm sure this will probably be okay just the way I got it, because this will come out. The one thing that I don't know, we won't know for sure, but one of the things I noticed in looking at lift top hardware, not a lot of them talked about how much lift this actually has. And when I was watching another video, somebody was talking about, well, this particular piece of hardware only lifts the table 6 inches versus another piece of hardware lifted the table 8 inches. And then there was other hardware that would even lift it way higher than that. I don't know how much height we're going to get. That is a concern of mine, because these are probably one of the most inexpensive set of lift top hardware you can buy. And truly, I can't tell you, maybe 6 inches is plenty. I don't really know. I'd actually have to sit at the chair that I intend to use these at and say, well, yeah, 6 inches is plenty of height and reach. So it's not just how high the table becomes, but also how much reach. How far out does it come? Does it come out 6 inches, 8 inches? I couldn't tell you. So I don't really know. So that's, you know, that's something that we're going to figure out as we go along. I bought them. I'm going to install them and just see what happens. But those are some of the questions we'll be answering. Is it comfortable? You know, ultimately, it doesn't matter what the cost is. If it's not going to be functional the way you intended to use it, then it's not any good at any cost. So I don't know how much reach they're going to give me, nor do I know how much height they're going to give me. But I believe what happens is this comes all the way forward and hits that pin right there. So this bar is going to come forward to there. So it's going to come out. Again, once we put it together, we'll find out how much it comes out. But I'm guessing because of the gas shock is not that deep, right? This gas shock is not that big. The reach can only be, you know, because that gas shock will be fully extended when it's all the way out. So I don't know what the reach will be. That is a concern though. So let me get those boards added to both sides, and then we can install the hinge and be done with this and see what we get. So I thought I would just share this with you. As I had said previously, this is the first time I've ever installed this hardware, and I discovered something almost immediately. And I thought, you know what? I should have done it perhaps a little bit differently, but this is part of that process. So you can see what we've got here. We've got our doubled up 4 1/4. And the reason I doubled up is so that when we put the screws in, it's going to go, you know, obviously through this piece, and it can even go into this piece if we use a long enough screw over here. Now back here where the next set of screws are, then we can only use a screw that can go from here to here. So here we'll use 1 1/4 right there, or 1 inch screws rather, probably, because this is 1 1/4. Okay. Whereas here we could probably use even 1 1/2 screws, because we're going to go through this board, and this board. So what did I do that kind of messed up? Well, I got to thinking a couple of different things, really. If we take a fence picket, which is 5 1/2, and we rip it right down the middle, that gives us 2 pieces that are 2 3/4. We could have stacked 2 pieces that were 2 3/4 on top of one another for this purpose, because all we need to do is screw in that much of the bracket to this, right? So that's one thing. Or, and I think that would be, you know, perhaps the easiest solution. But the other thing I got to looking at is the distance from the top of this. But see what I was talking about by leaving some extra meat there? So from the top of this down to 2 3/4, if we only use 2 3/4, we would still have enough meat at the bottom for that bottom screw to go into. So we wouldn't really need a double stack of 2 3/4. But what we did is we cut the 4 1/4 like I had talked about previously, but we were only able to get 2 pieces out of 1 picket. We have quite a bit left over of the picket, but not enough to make a third. So what we wound up doing is we wound up wasting material. Whereas if we took 1 picket, ripped it down the middle, and did 2 3/4, then we've got 2 sticks, 2 6-foot sticks, and that would have been enough to double up this side and double up this side. Okay, so it's just you know, a little bit different way of doing it. So we wouldn't have had to have gone this route, but it's okay that we did. I'm not worried about the fact that we did it this way. We just wouldn't have had to have done it that way. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and mount these. I will go ahead and throw some glue in. I guess I will. I wasn't going to, but because I didn't really think it would add much structurally, but you know, there is quite a bit of gluing surface there, so we might as well. You know, glue is cheap, so we'll go ahead and do that. Now, if we did not wrap this, this is what it looks like on the outside. Okay, and so if we did not wrap this all the way around, like I think I'm going to, for a little storage box, it still looked good. So that's the other consideration. I think it still looks good, even from the end here. You know, if you're looking at it from the end, it would still look good. Okay, so let me go ahead and get these, the 4 1/4 mounted, and then we'll look at putting in a couple of screws for the hinge itself. But you can see how easy this is going to go. We're just going to set our hinge in, and I'm going to have it a certain distance. I don't think I'm going to bring it all the way to this edge. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to set it back, oh, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch, something like that. Screw it in. Those 2 screws there, we'll use 1 1/2 screws for those 2. And then back here, we'll just be able, but we'll be able to put one here, here, and here. And then when it's fully extended, then we can put in the bottom ones, okay? Now here, obviously, once this is mounted, we're gonna mount the side first, get that mounted, and once that's mounted, then we can go ahead and put in our screws here. And because this is double thick, we can use 1-inch mounting screws here as well, okay? Because we're gonna go through this, this, and that. Maybe even use 1.25 inches because we do have the thickness of the plate. We could possibly use 1.25 inches. Thing about the screws I have, the 1.25 inches are just a little bit thicker, so they'll grab the material a little bit better. I might drive them in at a bit of an angle so they don't pop out the top, but I think I will use 1.25 inches. I might use 1.25 inches all the way around and then just try and drive them in at a little bit of an angle. And then here I'll use 1.5 inches because I'm able to use the longer screw here. So I think that's what we're gonna try anyhow. So let me get these mounted, and then we'll take a look at this hinge again. Pretty simple stuff. We add a little bit of glue over here and on the far end, and you can see I just got a couple of staples with my Ryobi narrow crown stapler, 1-inch staples, just 2 here, 2 there, just to hold it in place. And then what we're going to do is we're going to glue up the whole surface of this board, and we're going to do the same thing. Pop, drop in a couple of staples, boom, boom, to hold it in place. When we drive all the screws into the table legs, that's what will really add all the strength. And we do the same thing on both sides. So I just want to show you this. You could see I've got that as that little spacer in place. It's a little piece of wood I found. And so this bracket is going to bump up to that, and then that will give me the same spacing over here. And then so we'll go ahead and drive in our screws just like that. Real simple. So we're going to use 1.25 inches, or we're going to use 1.5 inch screws up front, and then all the rest we're going to use 1.25 inch screws. And we're going to do the same thing here. Once we get all these screws in place that we can reach, which are all the top screws and that screw there. If you look at the bottom of the bracket, we can't reach the bottom holes there. So we'll put in all the screws up top, which are 4 screws, and then that screw there. But there's more screws here, here, and right down here, which we can't get to until that's lifted up. So let's just go ahead and put those in place. And then we'll make sure this is squared up a little bit. And we'll go ahead and put in those screws too. And we'll get that far and then we'll take a look. All right, let me show you what we did and what I wanted to do, okay? So let me talk about what we did. So you see these 2 screws are tan. These are little deck screws. And if we hold the screw up here, you can see we got to go through the bracket, through both of them, and the leg. And you can see it's almost right at the tip, and that's exactly what we wanted. So what we wound up using was 1 5/8 inches. I said 1.5 inches. We are able to use 1 5/8 inches without it poking through. And we definitely wanted a screw that goes through this, and that, okay, to add a little bit of stability to our table as well. Now over here, we wound up using 1.25 inch deck screws as well. They are, you can tell probably by looking at the head, they are a little bit at a slant. Now what I wanted to use was these, but I couldn't find my 1.25 inch ones of these. And I might have used them all. But these are the ones I really like to use. These are available at Lowe's as the only place locally I've been able to find this particular brand in the 1 inch and the 1.25 inch. But they have a smaller head that I feel like would have set more flush. Now my concern with that head sticking out was that it's going to clear this bracket, but there's plenty of clearance even with the head sticking out a little bit. My OCD kind of gets to me looking at it like this, but obviously when it's right side up, you're not going to see all this. So the head is a little proud. This one you can tell is a little bit more flush because we drove it in more square, where this one we drove at an angle, so it's definitely sticking out a little bit more. But with those screws, I feel like the heads of these screws are smaller, and they just would have sat better on that bracket. But it doesn't really matter. Now, one thing I will point out, I didn't say earlier, is because we're so close to the end, I would really recommend that we pre-drill these. Now, I'm lazy sometimes when I'm building, and I'm in a hurry, and I did not pre-drill those. But if you look at the screw we're using, let me turn it. See that little notch? Okay, we're not supposed to have to pre-drill when we're using screws. That little notch acts kind of like a drill bit, and it's not supposed to split the wood here at the end. Now, if you look at these regular construction screws, these aren't deck screws, but if you look at them, I don't know if you can see that, they have that same little notch. And so we don't really have problems with the wood splitting when we're using that type of screw. Okay, so this is something that I look for when I'm buying screws. This is the brand. These, I'm pretty sure came from Home Depot. That's where I used to get all my stuff, because Home Depot was closest to me. Now Lowe's is closest to me. So maybe I'll start shopping Lowe's. So we're gonna go ahead and use these screws because I'm out of these green ones now. I only have a couple green left. So we're gonna use these screws for our top, and we are gonna go a bit at an angle because this is only 1.25 inches. That's what these screws are. And I'm concerned that if we just drive them straight down, we might poke through the top. We probably wouldn't. I don't know. I might just try driving one straight down once and see. I would prefer to drive straight down. But if you look at this, I feel like this bracket might be just a little, need just a little bit of adjustment. I don't know. It's probably not that big a deal. I can probably just screw it in just the way it is. So let me go ahead, finish mounting this one. We'll mount the other one. We'll cut the zip ties and see what we got. Well, there you have it. It's all in place. Super simple. And if it works like we want it to, it doesn't get any simpler than that, folks. Super, super simple install. And it's funny because I've watched a couple of videos. There's only a couple other videos I've seen on installing lift top hardware. And it seems like in both videos, they were doing it right side up and drawing lines and, you know, doing a lot of unnecessary work, I thought. I was like, no, the way to do that is to do it from the bottom. There's nothing to line up, scribe, you know, you just flip it over, install them at the bottom, and this should work exactly like we want it to. My one concern that I have, I'm not concerned about the clearance left to right. I am concerned about the clearance of these cleats front to back. When you go to set it back down, is it going to line up? I think I'm going to have to cut that cleat, trim that cleat just a little bit, just to allow, maybe sand it off, chamfer it, something to let it sit back down. I don't know how much playing I'll have to do with it. Like I said, I'm not concerned left to right. One thing, now this is a small tabletop. It's not heavy either. But one thing I did see in another video that I thought, well, maybe that would make some sense, is they put a little cleat behind here to kind of help this not sway back and forth left to right. Like I said, I don't know how big a deal that is. We're gonna have to see how it works when we flip it over. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave the zip ties in place, flip it over, and then cut the zip ties and watch the magic. All right, so let's do that. Let's get it flipped over, cut the zip ties, and then we'll see if it functions. All right, I thought I would go ahead and try and video this just so you guys, you've watched the build so far. So let's go ahead and cut these zip ties. All right, so far so good. It didn't, I dropped my scissors. It didn't spring up on me. I thought possibly it might spring a little bit, but it did not seem to spring at all. And that's good. I'm happy about that. Now, I'm expecting this top to, at least in the beginning perhaps, to kind of require almost two hands. So my thought was hold this apron and then lift the top. But let's just try and lift the top up. So you can see already, one of my concerns, it's a little bit tight right there, which I suspected it would be. You can see it is trying to spring, but see where those cleats are right there I was telling you about? I was concerned if those were just a little bit too tight. So those are definitely going to have to be trimmed. Which, like I said, I expected that was going to be the case. Because of the way this has to kind of move forward as it's moving up. It's not moving straight up and down like it was. It's actually trying to move. So you can see here how that's a little bit up and this isn't back here. So that was a concern all along. So those are going to have to be adjusted for sure. But like I said, that. Okay, so it's super tight. Let me get it up. I'm gonna have to use both hands here. So let me get it up, and then we'll look at how we're gonna make that adjustment. I think it's gonna be pretty straightforward, but let me get it in the upright position and see where we're at from there. Okay, so very, very pleased. Very pleased. My initial reaction is, yes, this is exactly what we needed. Now, let me just show you real quick. I don't know if you could see it very well, but see how that just barely touches this apron. Just barely. Can you see? I don't know if I can get the camera to focus that very well, but it just barely touches that apron. Back here, it's perfectly fine. So the concern is that cleat. So what I'm gonna do is just take a sander and just chamfer that edge. Because if we come over to this edge, we have the exact same thing happen. I don't know if you could see that, how well you could see that. I can't even see that, but I'm kind of blind without my glasses. But it's just barely touching that. So took just a little effort. All I did was push up on this corner and look, it came straight out, no issues. One of the things I was kind of impressed about was the fact that the height's not much, okay? Time will tell if I'm happy with that height. I knew the height couldn't be much because of the gas strut here. So you see how much that came out, that's about how tall it is. So I knew it wasn't going to be a lot of lift, but it may be just perfectly enough. So maybe you don't need a lot of lift. But what I was pleasantly surprised about is, look, it almost, so these boards are 5.5 inches wide, okay? And so you look, if we draw a straight line down to where the table is, that almost gives you, for sure, 12 inches of reach, which is perfect. That's exactly what you want. That's perfectly ideal for your legs to be up underneath here and to be able to utilize it. You put your laptop on it. It seems, you know, like nice and solid, like it's not wobbly at all. So right now, you know, these gas struts are pretty stiff when they're brand new. But I mean, it works perfect. And remember earlier I was talking about how that bracket would hit that pin and that's where it would stop. Well, that's exactly what it's doing. Okay. That's exactly what it's doing there. So I was just really impressed. And then to put it back, yeah, you do have to use one hand to kind of hold this, the very light table. But you can see it does go up and down quite easily. And there's a good little bit of spring. So we just had to make that one adjustment, and I think we got her. So let's go ahead and just shave those off a little bit, and then we'll take one final look. So now you can kind of see what we did. We just took some 60 grit sandpaper, sanded that edge real good. And that's all there was to it. Did the same thing to that cleat. And now, when you close it, closes nice and easy. Fits right in there like it's supposed to. and opening it is just as easy now. So really happy with how that closes and opens. So now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and wrap the rest of this with more picket material, and that will enable us to put the kids and the wife really like to use blankets a lot. And I hate blankets sitting over the back of the couch and things. So anyhow, we're gonna make that to hold some blankets, conceal whatever. If it's toys, I don't know if we wind up using this inside or outside or what. But it'll conceal the baby's toys or blankets or whatever we ultimately wind up using it for. But there it is. It really was pretty simple, and very pleased with that $20 hardware. Now, how it's going to hold up over time, I don't know, But as far as being able to, you can see there, all I did was lift it up right from the middle, so I just kind of tapped it, and it comes straight out. Just like so. How it's gonna last, I don't really know, but it seems to work pretty well for what we intend it for right now. So appreciate you watching.